One evening, Lily called the police, her voice trembling. "I'm so hungry," she whispered. Officer Thompson received the call, his heart aching. He knew he had to help. With urgency, he made his way to Lily's address, unaware of the heart-wrenching reality that awaited. When Officer Thompson finally entered the house, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The house was an absolute mess, and it was definitely no place for a child. He searched the entire house, and when he finally found Lily, he knew he had to help her. He realized her parents hadn't been home for days, and it had been way too long since her last meal. He took her to finally eat something. And then, the little girl opened up and started telling the officer about her parents. What she told him absolutely shocked him. The more Officer Thompson heard about Lily's parents, the angrier he became. He knew he had to find them as soon as possible. What had Lily's parents done, and why was their house such a mess? Where were they? Would he be able to find them? Officer Thompson was in his car, on his way to his next assignment. When the dispatcher told him that she had received a call from a little girl saying that she was hungry, he couldn't believe what he was hearing. He immediately dropped everything and asked for the address. He wondered where the girl's parents were. Couldn't they make her something to eat? He had no idea what to expect, but he was in a hurry to get there as fast as possible. He also had a little daughter back at home, and he couldn't imagine putting her in a situation like this. Luckily, it was only a 10-minute drive to the girl's house. She hadn't been able to tell the dispatcher the exact address where she lived, but luckily, they were able to trace her location. Soon enough, Officer Thompson arrived in the street and parked his car. He walked to the house on number 24, which was the address the dispatcher had given him, but he immediately found it a little odd. This house looked really old and dirty, even from the outside. He walked up to the door, knocked, and waited for someone to open it. However, nobody came. He knocked again, but it seemed like the house was empty. He started doubting whether he had come to the right house. Maybe the dispatcher had made a mistake. Maybe she meant to say it was number 42, or perhaps her team had made a mistake when tracking the location. Before doing anything else, he decided to radio the dispatcher to check whether the address was correct. But she told him she was 100% sure of it. She had double-checked, because she, too, had been very disturbed by the little girl's call for help. "No, I'm sure it's number 24, Thompson. Can you try again? The girl has to be in there," his colleague told him. "Okay, thanks for checking. I'll go again. Maybe check the back door if nobody opens this time. I'll get back to you soon." He walked over to the front door again, knocked, and rang the bell. But again, nobody answered. He even knocked on the blinds, saying, "This is the police. Open the door." But to no avail. There was one more thing he could do before calling for backup. He made his way to the back of the house, looking for the back door. He was not really surprised to see the huge mess in the garden, but it was even worse than he had expected. There was garbage everywhere, and the grass was knee-high, and the place smelled terrible. When he climbed the stairs to the back door, he first knocked on it. As expected, nobody came to open it. So, he put his hand on the handle and pushed it down. He imagined it would be locked, but he couldn't break the lock open before trying to open the door the normal way first, of course. As he pushed the door, it opened. He was surprised, and now also very curious. Was this little girl even going to be here? And where were her parents? This place looked absolutely horrible, and it was definitely not a good place for a child. He slowly made his way inside, and he couldn't believe what he saw. The mess was even worse inside the house. He could barely see the floor. It was covered in dirty clothes, dishes, takeout bags, you name it. Officer Thompson couldn't help but gag a few times as he made his way to the living room. "Hello? Is anybody there?" he said. He really hoped that he would find that little girl, because if this was her home, he couldn't leave her there. He needed to help her. He searched the living room and the entire floor, but he didn't find anybody there. After that, it was time to check the first floor. He slowly walked up the stairs saying, "Hello, I'm here to help you. Is anybody there?" And then he heard something. Now, he knew that he had come to the right address. There was no doubt about it anymore. He had heard a voice softly say, "I'm here." It had been really soft, but it seemed to come from his left side. There was only one door to his left. Would the girl be in there? He took a deep breath before walking over to the door and opening it. And when he finally did, he gasped. He hadn't expected to see anything like this. It was indeed the girl's bedroom, and she sat on the bed, staring at him with wide eyes. She looked a little afraid, but Officer Thompson walked inside very slowly, explaining that he was there to help her. "What is your name?" he asked her. She told him, "Lily," and he asked her, "My colleague told me that you were hungry. Do you want to go get something to eat?" And she nodded without saying another word. He looked around the room and was shocked to see how different it looked from the rest of the house. Lily hesitated for a moment, her small hands fidgeting with the blanket. "There's something else," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. Her room, though more organized than the rest of the house, held the weight of many secrets. The walls, adorned with innocent childlike drawings, felt like they've seen a lot more than they should have. Officer Thompson knelt down to her level, his blue eyes earnestly meeting hers. "Lily, you can trust me. Whatever you tell me will stay between us, unless it's something that can help your parents. I promise." He extended his pinky finger, an age-old gesture of a sacred oath. Hesitantly, she hooked her pinky with his. Gathering courage, Lily began, "Sometimes Mommy and Daddy have friends over. They don't look like the friends I have in school. They look different." Her innocent description painted an alarming image in Officer Thompson's mind. "They always tell me to stay in my room," she continued, her voice quivering slightly. "The room," she gestured around her, "is my safe place. I have my toys, my drawings," she pointed to the locked door. "And that. They tell me to lock it and play my music real loud." Officer Thompson's heart ached. A child's room should be a sanctuary, not a shelter from potential harm. "But sometimes," Lily continued, "even with the music, I hear things. Voices, not like how Mommy and Daddy talk to me, but louder, angrier." She hugged her teddy bear tighter. Officer Thompson's mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle that this innocent child had inadvertently become a part of. There were times, driven by a child's curiosity, where Lily couldn't help but peek out from her makeshift haven. She'd unlock her door just a tad, so she could catch a sliver of the living room scene. The guests, always in dark, heavy coats no matter the weather, had faces she could barely recall. Their silhouettes, though, with broad shoulders and harsh stances, were etched in her memory. Lily described how some of them had tattoos that crawled up their necks, and some had rings with strange symbols. They rarely smiled. "Once," she whispered, "I saw one of them give Daddy a small box. It looked heavy." Officer Thompson's pulse quickened. These weren't just neighbors or friends from work. They sounded more like people from the city's criminal underbelly. Despite the grim nature of her tales, Lily relayed them with a kind of wonder, like she was recounting an adventure from a storybook. She described the color of one lady's high heels, how they sparkled, and how another guest laughed, a deep, throaty chuckle she tried to mimic. The juxtaposition of her innocence with the dark undertones of her stories was both heartwarming and chilling. "Sometimes they argue," she murmured. "Words like shipment, deadline, and payment are said a lot. One time, I heard Mommy cry after they left. She fiddled with her toy. And once, I found this." From under her bed, she produced a small gold coin with foreign inscriptions. Officer Thompson recognized it immediately. It was a known currency in the world of illegal trade. From her descriptions, it became evident that Lily's parents, intentionally or not, were involved in some dark dealings. Whether they were victims or participants was yet unclear. But one thing was for sure. Lily's life, cloaked in a semblance of normality, was overshadowed by dangers she was too young to understand fully. Officer Thompson made a silent vow to unearth the truth. Nestled under her bed or behind her closet door, Lily would sometimes strain her ears to catch the words floating up the stairs. "Daddy once said they were in too deep," she whispered, her brows furrowed in a childlike attempt to understand. "And Mommy," she'd talk about wanting out. But they spoke in hushed tones, like they were scared someone would hear. "The man with the scar on his cheek always looked angry," Lily began, her small fingers tracing an imaginary line on her own face. "There was a woman with bright red hair. She had a sad smile, always glancing around like she was lost." The way she described them painted vivid images in Officer Thompson's mind. Every face seemed to have its story, every gaze a hidden message. As days turned into weeks, Lily noticed her parents growing more anxious. Late-night talks became heated arguments. Hasty exits became common. Once, they left in the middle of the night and didn't come back until dawn, Lily recounted. Her voice trembled, revealing the trauma of countless nights spent alone, wondering if her parents would return. Each fragment of information Lily provided seemed like a puzzle piece. Officer Thompson, seasoned in deciphering the criminal world, could sense the gravity of the situation. The coin, the scar-faced man, the desperate conversations, it all pointed towards illicit operations. The real question that loomed, were her parents victims or collaborators? "I feel it, officer." "Here," Lily said, clutching her tiny chest. Her eyes, wide and earnest, sought validation. "I know something's not right, even if I don't get all the words." Officer Thompson leaned down, meeting her at eye level. "I believe you, Lily. Sometimes our gut tells us things long before our brain understands. And right now, mine's telling me we need to help your parents." Knowing that the house held too many shadows of the past, Officer Thompson decided it best to relocate. "Lily," he said gently, "we're going to a place where you'll be safe, okay?" Lily nodded, clutching her stuffed bear tightly as they headed to the police station. The familiar hum of the station's lights and the distant murmurs of officers gave Thompson a sense of control over the situation. As they entered, Officer Wendy Morgan, with her soft curls and warm smile, approached them. Recognized for her expertise in handling sensitive children's cases, Wendy was the ideal bridge between Lily's traumatic experiences and the answers they sought. "Hey there, Lily," Wendy greeted, extending a hand with a gentle squeeze. "I've heard you're quite the brave girl." Wendy's office was a stark contrast to the rest of the station, filled with toys, colorful drawings, and plush seating. She had a way of making children feel seen and valued. "Would you like some hot cocoa?" she offered Lily. As they sipped their drinks, Wendy shared tales of her own childhood, laying the foundation of a bond built on empathy and understanding. Encouraged by Wendy's genuine interest, Lily began recounting her memories with newfound clarity. The weight of her past, though still heavy, seemed a tad lighter in Wendy's office. The walls, adorned with children's drawings, bore silent testament to many such stories. And as Lily's narrative flowed, so did the hope of untangling the web of mystery surrounding her parents. Noting Lily's lingering glances at the art supplies, Wendy proposed, "Would you like to draw something for me, Lily?" The child eagerly nodded. As crayons met paper, Lily began to illustrate her memories, from the strange visitors to particular objects they'd left behind. Each drawing, seemingly innocent, held clues that could potentially lead them closer to the truth. With a box of colored pencils in her lap, Lily began with an image of her family. Her father, tall and lanky with a comforting smile, stood beside her mother, graceful and gentle. And then there was little Lily, her drawing self sporting a bright red dress and curly hair. The simple joy in her illustration encouraged Wendy to delve deeper. "Tell me about this day," Wendy prompted. Lily's hand moved with surprising precision for her age. She sketched out more scenes, detailing events and parties. As her drawings expanded, figures previously shrouded in mystery began to take shape. A man with a distinct scar, a woman with ornate jewelry, and a symbol that kept reappearing, a curious insignia that resembled intertwined serpents. Upon closer inspection, Wendy noticed subtle cues within the artwork. The dark clouds hovering above the house during one particular event, the cage in a corner with a bird trapped inside, and the way some figures were shaded darker than others. These choices, unintentional as they might be from Lily, were clearly reflective of her emotions and perceptions. To an uninformed viewer, they were just drawings, but for Wendy, each artwork was a profile. The man with the scar appeared dominant, always drawn larger than others. The woman with the jewelry always seemed to be whispering to another figure. And the intertwined serpents, always present, suggested an emblem, or perhaps a calling card. Wendy realized that Lily, through her innocent eyes, had been profiling key players in the mystery. Armed with these colorful clues, Wendy spread out the drawings on her desk, connecting patterns. Certain figures often appeared together, while some were always in the background, as though overseeing the events. The bird in the cage appeared more frequently with the scarred man, hinting at his oppressive presence. As Wendy pieced together the story, a clearer picture emerged, pushing them one step closer to unveiling the hidden truth about Lily's parents. Encouraging Lily to continue her drawings, Wendy handed her a blue pencil. "Can you draw the cars you saw outside your house?" Lily nodded, quickly sketching various vehicles. One in particular caught Wendy's attention, a black sedan with a peculiar bumper sticker of a cartoon snake. This detail, seemingly insignificant, might hold a clue. Taking the drawings, Wendy cross-referenced the depicted figures with the police department's database. To her astonishment, several of Lily's characters matched known individuals in their files. The scarred man, in particular, was a known associate in a series of unsolved cases. The woman with the jewelry was less familiar, but her distinctive pieces matched a reported theft from a month prior. In the midst of the investigation, Officer Thompson managed to find more information about Lily's parents. Her mother worked at a local museum specializing in ancient artifacts. This detail rang alarm bells. The intertwined serpent symbol from Lily's drawings had ancient origins, possibly connecting the visitor's intent to her mother's profession. Inside the dimly lit office, Wendy and Thompson laid out all the gathered information: drawings, photos, and notes. Their brainstorming led to a potential link between the visitors and an underground network interested in stolen artifacts. Lily's parents might have unwillingly been caught in this web. The black sedan, the jewelry, the serpents, everything began to connect. While the evidence was still largely circumstantial, both Wendy and Thompson felt a deep, unshakable hunch that they were onto something big. Their instincts, honed from years on the force, buzzed with anticipation. They needed to act swiftly, but with caution. The next steps would be crucial, not just for the case, but for Lily's safety and the hope of reuniting her with her parents. Wendy noticed a recurring theme in Lily's drawings: storm clouds hovering over figures, dark shadows, and somber colors. It was evident that these weren't mere memories, but expressions of the fear Lily felt. The young girl, with crayon in hand, was conveying more than just faces. She was illustrating her emotions, painting a vivid tapestry of the trepidation she experienced. The more Wendy scrutinized the drawings, the clearer the connections became. She identified several figures from the police's criminal database. The man with a jagged scar over one eye, a well-known fence for stolen goods. The woman with the sharp chin, notorious for her role in art thefts. These weren't mere visitors. They were dangerous individuals with nefarious intentions. As the pieces began to fit, Thompson and Wendy came to a chilling realization. The supposed gatherings at Lily's house weren't social visits, but confrontations, likely revolving around something of high value. Was it related to the ancient artifacts? Or perhaps something even more mysterious? Lily's descriptions of heated arguments, whispered threats, and hurried exits now painted a dire picture. The implications of Lily's testimony weighed heavily on the officers. It was becoming increasingly evident that her parents had unknowingly, or perhaps against their will, become ensnared in a dangerous web. Were they victims or willing participants? Either way, the stakes were rising, and the urgency to find and protect them was paramount. Each new revelation, every clue gleaned from Lily's drawings and accounts, began pointing in one unmistakable direction. A notorious gang known to the police for its involvement in illicit artifact trading. The symbols, the characters, and the modus operandi matched their profile. The puzzle was nearing completion, and the officers now had a clear target in their sights. Poring over financial documents and bank statements, Wendy and Thompson started to piece together a troubling narrative. It seemed Lily's parents might have been entangled in a significant financial debt. Records showed a series of unexplained loans, large sums withdrawn suddenly, and assets sold off. Was it this debt that drew the shady figures into their lives? Did they owe money to the wrong people? Each passing hour intensified the anxiety. Knowing the ruthless nature of the gang, the officers were acutely aware of the potential danger Lily's parents could be in. If this was a debt situation, the parents' lives might be used as collateral. Every tick of the clock echoed in their ears, amplifying the importance of their mission. Armed with descriptions from Lily's drawings and the data on the gang, the police department orchestrated multiple stakeouts at suspected hideouts. Thompson, relying on his seasoned instincts, followed the subtlest leads, tracking down associates and pressing them for information. It was a vast web, but they were determined to untangle it. As the officers delved deeper into the case, they learned more about the trajectory of Lily's parents' lives. Interviews with close friends revealed the couple had previously led a comfortable life, enjoying moderate success in their careers. But an unfortunate investment gone sour, coupled with medical emergencies, had thrown them into a spiral of debt. This descent had made them vulnerable, pulling them into the underworld they'd never intended to encounter. Late one evening, an anonymous tip came through. The caller, masking their voice, mentioned an abandoned warehouse on the city's outskirts where a transaction was to occur. The details aligned suspiciously well with the gang's modus operandi. Could this be where they were holding Lily's parents? Wendy and Thompson knew this lead was their best shot at a resolution. They had to move, and they had to move fast. With a SWAT team in position and snipers on rooftops, the police approached the warehouse with caution. Using infrared devices, they pinpointed the location of the hostages within the building. As the countdown began, flashbangs were thrown, disorienting the captors. In a flurry of precisely coordinated moves, the officers stormed in. Shots rang out, but within minutes the criminals were subdued, and Lily's parents were freed, shaken but alive. As they stepped out into the dawn light, the extent of their ordeal became evident. Chains, sparse food, and signs of physical torment painted a chilling picture of what they had endured. The parents tearfully revealed their desperate attempts to negotiate and buy time, hoping for a miracle. This criminal underbelly, which they had unwittingly been drawn into, was darker than they could ever have imagined. With the nightmare behind them, the path to recovery loomed large. Community fundraisers and generous donations helped alleviate some of the family's immediate financial burdens. Recognizing the depth of their mistakes and the trauma they had been through, they sought assistance. Local organizations stepped in, offering debt counseling and psychological support to navigate their emotional and financial recovery. The road to healing was a long one. Regular therapy sessions became a haven for the family. The counselors worked diligently, helping them address their guilt, fears, and traumas. Lily, too, received counseling to cope with the upheaval she had witnessed. Slowly, they began to mend, drawing strength from each other and the community's support. The trials had tested their bonds, but now they emerged stronger than ever. Open dialogues replaced whispered secrets, and a newfound trust bound them together. They learned the significance of confronting challenges together, leaning on each other for support, and seeking help when overwhelmed. The scars of the past remained, but they served as poignant reminders of their resilience and the unwavering power of familial love. Post-rescue, local banks and financial institutions reached out, offering tailored plans to address the family's mounting debt. Workshops on financial literacy became a regular feature in their lives. With consistent effort, guided budgeting, and disciplined spending, they started chipping away at their dues. The haunting threats of loan sharks became a thing of the past as they steadily worked their way towards financial stability. Word of the family's ordeals spread, evoking an overwhelming surge of support from neighbors and strangers alike. Fundraisers were organized, and essential items were donated. The local school offered Lily a scholarship, alleviating educational expenses. This unexpected kindness reinforced their belief in the inherent goodness of people and the strength of communal ties. As months turned into years, the dark cloud that once loomed over the family began to dissipate. Laughter returned to their home, and weekends were filled with picnics and outings. The bond between them, now unbreakable, became the envy of many. Lily's grades improved, her parents found stable jobs, and slowly, the traumatic memories faded into the background. One evening, gathered around the fireplace, Lily's parents shared their story with her, ensuring she understood the implications of their mistakes. They expressed their deep remorse and emphasized the value of integrity, the dangers of quick fixes, and the importance of open communication. Their reflections weren't just personal. They hoped their experiences would serve as cautionary tales for others. The closing scene showcases the family at a local park. The sun sets, casting a golden hue over them as they sit on a blanket, engrossed in a board game. The joy and love radiating from them are palpable. As the game progresses, Lily, with a triumphant smile, completes a puzzle, symbolizing the culmination of their journey. Together, they had faced adversity and emerged victorious, their bonds of love proving unshakable.